Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. For today's video, I'm going to be doing a breakdown of the entire PulseChain ecosystem. I wanted to take a look at the 4 core tokens of that ecosystem, and then I wanted to be diving in and actually sharing with you guys a number of my favorite ones that are built on PulseChain that I think are going to outperform and actually do really well over the next few months. I think PulseChain is primed to do big numbers this cycle because it's a layer 1 that hasn't had a prior trend. Anytime I've invested into a new layer 1, they always outperform everything else in my portfolio, and so I do have a lot of confidence that this ecosystem is going to do big numbers too. Now guys, if at any point you find value, please do me a favor, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. For anybody that wants to see my investments moving forward into this cycle, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. Now guys, coming into the chart of PulseChain, the real reason I got into this ecosystem was because I sacrificed for Pulse. Now, the reason why I started actually talking about it on YouTube was because I noticed that we had just finished this first little impulse right here. And I made my video right here. We made one more little sell-off after. But the reason I was talking about it was because I knew that this was a wave 1, and we were about to be going into a wave 3. And then we'd have a finishing wave 5 shortly after. And that's exactly what we ended up having play out. Now, the only difference here is inside of our wave 2, in this ABC correction, we came all the way back down and almost fully retraced the move, which inside of a one-wave impulse, that's normal. It's not like it's unheard of by any means. The question was going to be, what is our wave count? Because this actually gives us a much more bullish outlook. Even though we came all the way back down and almost fully retraced this move, it's actually more bullish than anything because the next move coming is going to be a wave 3. And that's why I always say that the best thing we can do is focus on the bigger picture. Because oftentimes, even though it seems really scary in the short term when the market's corrected 60-70%, the big picture is still looking really bullish. So I do think we're at the point of reversing. And then what comes next is going to be this wave 3. Wave 3, and then we still have a wave 5 to come after that. So remember how when I was making my first videos talking about PulseChain, we were all the way back down in this move. And that was a wave 1. We had finished wave 1, wave 2, and we were getting ready for this wave 3. Notice how much bigger that wave 3 was right here compared to this wave 1. That's the exact same significance that this next move is coming, right? The next move coming is a wave 3. That recent move that we just went through was also a wave 3. Now, this is going to be a wave 3 of 3. This is the most impulsive one. We're going to see probably this little move up here. Probably make this big move into new all-time highs, retest those all-time highs, then we'll make another big move into price discovery. And we'll follow something like this, a really parabolic type of an impulse. And then from there, we'll probably have another correction of some kind before we make a huge, well, it's hard to say how big it'll be, but we will go in for another wave 5 of some type. Now, I think that the market could easily go to 0.001. To me, that's a fair target. That would be a pretty decent move from where we're at today. It wouldn't be insane, but it really depends on how much adoption PulseChain gets. I don't know how much adoption that's going to be. To 0.001, you're looking at like a 15x, but that's just a reasonable target. I think that this thing could far outperform what I'm drawing here today, and I'm not necessarily even trying to give you guys exact price targets. I'm just trying to share with you guys how the Elliott waves actually map out. So this is what I do believe is coming for PulseChain, and if the entire native chain token itself is going to do this, then the entire ecosystem as a whole is about to explode. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is PulseX, and the two charts we just talked about look exactly the same. The only difference is PulseX outperforms Pulse on the way up. It actually performs better if we remove the drawing tools. It makes a bigger move on the way up. If we compare Fibonacci, high to the low, notice how this one came all the way up to the 3618. We come all the way over here and look at what PulseX did. It extended above the 4618. This is a 4236, but the 4618 would be right here, and it even extended above that. So that's just goes to show that it outperforms Pulse on the way up, and then it actually holds better support on the way back down. Pulse outperforms it on the way back down as well. That's why I don't think you should hold PulseChain. If you're going to hold any of the two, I would just actually rotate all of it into PulseX because it just doesn't make sense to hold PulseChain. Looking at this, we're doing the same thing. This is just a wave 1 and a wave 2, but notice how the wave 2 support is holding above the prior high If we come over here and look at the same thing, this thing is like clear down into the mid-range right now and even almost fully retrace that. So the two are in a completely different point, but they are following the same price structure. And so that's why I think that there's still a good opportunity. If you're looking to hold one or the other, I would personally just go with PulseX. It doesn't make any sense to hold the other one because this thing is still going to end up outperforming on the way back up. So looking at price targets as far as Fibonacci goes, you know, in this one, remember how we extended all the way above the 4236? The same thing can easily happen into this next move. And that's why I say that I'm not trying to predict the price because I don't know what the price is going to be. I sell based off of time frames and the 4-year cycles because that is the most consistent thing that we have inside of the markets. Nothing else makes more sense than following that trend. So as long as you're following that trend with Bitcoin, you can play the altcoin markets with a lot more, you know, accuracy, I would say. So the big thing for me is just mainly looking to hold. Like as we're in this big dip, now is the buying opportunity. You know, we're at the bottom of this wave 2. We're about to start this reversal back up. So I do think that the markets are bottomed here. And if we're seeing PulseChain bottomed, or Pulse the token bottomed, PulseX bottomed, then I do think that this is the bigger picture reversal setting in real time. Now the next one we're going to talk about is Hex. I don't really like Hex at all, personally. I just don't see the reason why anybody would stake it, because especially not when incentive token exists, which we're going to get into in the next coin. But we are going to end up talking about this just for the sake of covering it, because it is one of the core tokens. Now this has done, you know, pretty much the same thing that the other two have done, just a one-wave impulse, but it's underperformed all of them. And I do think that it's going to be the worst one to hold out of all of those tokens. You know, it'll probably actually I mean, I don't know what to say with Pulse. I think it could actually outperform Pulse, but to me personally, I'm not really interested in holding Hex because I don't really see the attraction with staking it. I don't like the idea of staking it and locking it for all of this time because it just doesn't make any sense. Like when there's other opportunities for yield to make money on, it doesn't make any sense with this. So when I'm looking at this chart, we're inside of just completing this wave 1 and we're inside of this wave 2. We're going to go into a wave 3 next, but to me, it's just going to underperform all of the other ones I just shared with you. So if you're looking at buying any of these tokens, buy PulseX. The next one we're going to talk about over here is incentive token. And this is the real reason why I would never advise anybody to stake Hex and why I would really just choose, and why I would tell everybody to just kind of stay away from it. Because the big thing for you to do to make the most money in cycles is to play the cycles. You want to get in at the market bottoms when the markets are starting to sell off based off of the 4-year cycles, because Bitcoin follows the 4-year cycles so perfectly. Have you just followed these for the last 10 years, you would have made more money than anybody, and it doesn't take a genius to follow it. So if you're following these trends, even if Bitcoin pulls a left translation and deviates from its normal position, it's still following a 4-year cycle because we still bottomed at the end of the year 2022, which was 4 years from the last bottom of 2018, which was 4 years from the last bottom in 2014. So we're looking at all of this stuff playing out every single cycle to exact precision. And so the real reason why I wouldn't stake anything is because you want to be into these markets and then out of them. You want to get in, play your yield while the markets are running hot, you know, make your profit while everything is doing good, but then get out when the market starts to look like Bitcoin's topping, when we're not even looking like it's topping. When Bitcoin gets to the point of its ending of the 4-year cycle, we pull profit, we get the hell out because we know that these things are going to crash. So you can't get so emotionally invested into the ideas that these are the future, that these are the next big thing, because even Bitcoin historically has pulled back 80%. So why are you going to give back 80%, you know, altcoins 90+%? Why would you ever give back all that profit when you can simply just play the cycles? And I'm telling you guys, it doesn't take a genius. I've shared with you guys the 4-year cycles of Bitcoin. You just have to draw like 5 lines on the chart. Like literally anybody can do it. So when I'm talking about the reason why I won't stake Hex is because you can play things like incentive token. Now, incentive token itself, the way you would play it is by basically farming on PulseX. By farming on PulseX, you'll actually earn incentive token as the farmed reward token. So this is a reward token on PulseX. And so looking at the chart of PulseX, how bullish this thing is going into this big wave 3, that means that this entire market of incentive token is also going to be blowing up too. Notice how much volume is over in here. There's more volume coming in here at the beginning of this new trend as we've just made our first higher high than there was even all the way back at the cycle top, which if we're comparing the two, you know, we're looking at like a we're like 25x away from that all-time high. So if you guys are able to earn, you know, $100 a day worth of ink, or $1,000 a day worth of ink, if you're able to provide liquidity with Pulse or PulseX, or even maybe a stable coin if you've got them sitting around, you can earn an insane amount of incentive token if you've got stables. And when the price of ink was actually going up, the farms were paying out insane margins. So when we're looking at how the heck this thing is going to do 25x just to the prior all-time highs, that's the reason I wouldn't stake Hex, is because you could make so much more money playing around with incentive token. And yes, I understand people are going to say, well, there's impertinent loss, but the truth of the matter is this: if you're holding Pulse and you're holding PulseX, these two are the exact same chart. So the impertinent loss that you're going to experience by one of these outperforming the other isn't going to be that big. I don't care about that. A lot of you guys hold both of those tokens. Many of you guys sacrifice for both of those chains at the same time. Many of you sacrifice the same amount of money for each. So depending on what you ended up doing, you probably have a big portfolio just sitting there worth of both of those tokens. You probably have P-Hex just sitting there too. You could be farming all of those tokens, and then you could literally take that and then be actually earning incentive token that's going to 25x just to the prior highs. So if we're looking at this thing big picture, I think it's the most bullish Richard Heart token. I don't think you should mess with anything else besides this, unless you're looking to actually yield farm. If you're already holding these other core tokens, by all means provide liquidity, mess around with this and farm it, because this thing is bullish as heck. When we're looking at this, it just broke out of a falling wedge. This was our first higher high. Notice how we had all of this resistance from the SEC lawsuit. And then even when we started to make our first higher highs in this breakout of volume, we were holding below that same level as resistance. All we ended up doing was breaking above, coming back down and retesting that as support, and we're going to end up reversing off of this level. What's interesting is we've completed a breakout of a falling wedge. We have multiple different reactions inside of this descending resistance, and we're currently sitting at the very bottom of it. So it's actually a really good buy. I think anybody that's looking to rotate into this ecosystem should start with incentive token, because if you're holding the other tokens, I think you should for sure be providing liquidity farming for incentive token, because if this thing only goes to the all-time highs, $100 a day, $1,000 a day is going to be so much freaking money. And if this thing goes up, you know, into a new all-time high, maybe it hits like 200 bucks per coin, you're looking at insane amounts of money printed just from being early in farming. So that's why I wouldn't stake Hex. And people that are into Hex will fight me tooth and nail to the very end with me saying that, but I still stand by that. Now, coming into the first token I want to talk about today, this is going to be Pulse Launch, and this is obviously my favorite token in the entire ecosystem, because this is the one that we're actually working on. So inside of Pulse Launch, this is a Launchpad, and the reason why I think it's going to do so well is because every single one of the last cycle Launchpads I got into ended up giving me the biggest returns. You get the biggest returns holding the altcoin itself, the native token of the Launchpad, but then you also get a ton of returns by simply just being able to get early into the pre-sales and all of the Launchpad tokens that end up going through the actual incubations. So when we're looking at this, I think this thing is going to blow up, and I love the chart setup currently, because all we've really ever done, we added to exchanges, and then we made this big correction when people freaked out and panic sold. People were scared about the fact that we kind of botched the launch, and so understandably so, like, you know, we really did. Regardless of so, we're looking at this thing going back up because it's already finished its ABC correction. Out of the bottom of wave C, we got our first impulse, 5 waves off of the lows. Finished this ABC. We finished another expanded flat. Notice how this wave B came above and actually broke above the top of this beginning move. That's what's called an expanded flat correction, where it goes A, B, and then C, where it breaks down both ways. Kind of wrecks everybody. We saw the exact same thing just recently. An expanded flat corrections. And so when I'm looking at both of these setups, all we're really doing right now is just kind of basing at the bottom of this wave 2 before we start that next sort of move. And there's a lot of cool things coming to Pulse Launch. That's why I'm, putting this one number 1, is because I really do think that there's an insane amount of opportunity. Now, I'm working with these guys, so I can't even talk about exactly what's coming and the announcements that are going to be made and everything. But I just got to say that you're going to have to trust me on this, that it's going to be really cool. There's going to be a lot of profit potential moving forward. And I just think that anybody that's getting in early is going to have the biggest opportunity, because once you get priced out of being early to the launch pads, it becomes increasingly hard. Once the volumes come in, once everybody starts starts to realize, oh my gosh, these things are printing money, I need to be early, the token prices start to explode. So I do think that with the announcements coming, there's going to be a lot of new hype generated. And when we're looking at the entire PulseChain ecosystem bottoming and going up, that's the main reason I think Launch has gone down, mainly just because of Pulse being bonded with it in liquidity, Pulse being down 72% inside of this dip, and, you know, ultimately Launch following it in price. So with us both bottoming, if you actually come over here and look at the Launch Pulse pair, this thing's sitting inside of a big cup and handle, and it looks so freaking bullish. I love this setup in Pulse Launch because the best thing you can actually do is make more money on your Pulse stack. And so coming over here and actually looking at the Pulse pairs, this thing is sitting in a literal perfect cup and handle. Very top of the cup, topped at the exact same point. We saw this little handle come in here. The handle bottomed at the 618 Fibonacci, exactly where you would want it to be. So this thing's following your standard cup and handle, and I've seen these things. Basically, the cup and handle is the most bullish chart pattern because it's always what happens right before a market goes insanely parabolic. So I really believe that that's what's coming for Launch. And if we're looking at either pair, the dollar pair is underperforming as of now. It's underperforming against the dollar pair, but I think that this thing is set to change. I'm telling you guys, the ROI potential on these launch pads is a lot bigger than most projects. And just to the prior all-time highs, you're looking at like a 2.5x. So I think that this thing's a good one to watch out for. Now, the next one I want to talk about today is going to be D.I.Y. Now, you guys might be wondering, why am I talking about a D.I.Y. stablecoin? And why is it not stable? And that is the tricky thing that we're going to be covering right now, because I do think that this is going to be one of the biggest narratives to be playing over the course of the PulseChain cycle. So when we're talking about what this coin actually is, this is the D.I.Y. stablecoin. And the reason why this exists is because when PulseChain went live, Richard Hart literally forked the entire chain of Ethereum. He duplicated everything. So all of the tokens that were existing on chain at the time of that snapshot was taken, they got duplicated and printed over on PulseChain. So any of these D.I.Y. stablecoin that people were holding at the time of the snapshot over on Ethereum, they got them duplicated over here, and they were existing on the PulseChain ecosystem. The only difference is they were just free, tokens over there. People started providing liquidity to them, and then the tokens actually started running in price. So these things started at basically nothing, like they were worthless, had no value. But then they started to run super hard because the narrative started to spin off where, hey, this is actually going to peg to $1. This thing is going to run to $1. Richard Hart is going to end up pegging the D.I.Y. stablecoin. And when that happens, it'll be the only truly decentralized stablecoin in the entire crypto space. Because what will have happened is the price will organically rise all the way up to $1. Which I got to go to a log scale for you guys to be able to see it. But this is the narrative. I'm explaining the literal narrative that is driving the price of this. People believe that it's going to go all the way up to $1, and when it gets close enough to that $1 mark, Richard Hart or somebody close to him or some developer in the PulseChain ecosystem is going to end up actually making a MakerDAO fork that ends up, creating that stability in price and pegs it to $1. And the reason this has legs is because there is some on-chain data and analysis to prove that, with Richard actually doing some of the stuff on the blockchain. So it is an interesting narrative that could very well be real. And if it is real, it'd be the only organically grown decentralized stablecoin in all of crypto. So to me, the value in that is life-changing. Like if we could actually have something like that, like it would be revolutionary. So whether the narrative's real or not, to me, the value in that idea is so amazing that I want it to be real, but we're going to have to end up just seeing what the hell happens, because the chart looks great. All we finished is a wave 1 impulse and a wave 2 correction, and we're currently working inside of this wave 3. So I still think that this thing has plenty of legs. There's still a lot of new volume coming in here. It's got a fairly low market cap, not the lowest of market cap, but the big thing here is from where we're at right now today to $1 in price, you're looking at almost a 200x gain. So that's a huge move. I think it's worth the play, because if you're looking at 200x from here, that's still significantly higher than where we're at right now. I think this thing 100% has legs, because it's narratives that drive markets, it's narratives that drive price. So whether the narratives are real or not, it doesn't really matter. It's one of the best narratives I've ever seen in all of crypto. So it's fun to play and speculate on. Now the next one is going to be wrapped BTC. So in the exact same speculatory play that we just looked at with D.I.Y. stablecoin, we're looking at with wrapped BTC. Notice how it's $225. Well, obviously it's not real wrapped Bitcoin. This is the forked version. So the current circulating supply is 154,000, yet it's worth $225. So realistically, when the same narrative spins off, which it's already starting to around wrapped Bitcoin, but the big narrative is around this D.I.Y. stablecoin, right? Which, look how crazy it would be if we went to $1. It'd be something like that. So if that's the case, just keep in mind that this narrative is going to drive the narrative of wrapped Bitcoin, because wrapped Bitcoin is just also the forked version of wrapped Bitcoin. The difference is people are actually providing liquidity to it, and people are speculating that it's going to end up parroting, or people are speculating that it's going to be worth value. So even though it doesn't have the same significant narrative of being the first decentralized stablecoin, this will never be Bitcoin. It'll never parity to the price of Bitcoin. There's nothing to make it do that. But I will say that the price itself looks bullish. The wave structure is really solid. We just finished this little 5-wave impulse, which means this is a wave 1 and a wave 2. So I do think we're about to get ready for a very big move coming very soon. And all this really is doing, or has done, is just kind of consolidated sideways. So this is the very beginning stages of a parabolic move. So I think that with the same speculatory play that we're looking at with D.I.Y, the same thing is going to be playing out with wrapped Bitcoin. For you guys that do want to actually figure out which these are, I'll link the link in the description for you to find the chart. I know that I had a hard time actually finding the right D.I.Y stablecoin because PulseChain has so many forked tokens over here. Now the next one we're going to be looking at is over here. It's SolidX. The reason I want to talk about SolidX is because I think that this chart is setting up for a pretty big move. Now I like this setup because when we're zooming out on a bigger time frame, this looks exactly like the gold fractal. Now you guys that don't know what the gold fractal is, we're going to come all the way back and look at the gold fractal, and this is what I'm talking about. This exact pattern where you make this top and you kind of consolidate sideways at this sort of range. People think it's going to bottom, and then that's right before you get this final capitulation. This is the real rounded bottom, and then you go into the new cycle. This is the exact same setup as SolidX. Like, it's the same thing all the way through. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity here. The only thing we've done is actually hold better support, because notice how this capitulation didn't even come lower than that. You know, usually you would think it would come like this. And so I guess maybe you could draw the conclusion that we're still inside of this move before that capitulation takes place. But I honestly think that we've kind of already finished it, and this is its own sort of variant of that move. We've already seen this big breakout. New volume came in here. We had this descending resistance in here, and that was the main thing I was waiting for. And once we broke out of it, that's really where we saw the confirmation of the volume. So to me, that's really why we're going to end up seeing this reversal. It looks like a little ascending triangle before it makes the next leg up. And if we can get above this sort of mid-range at $100 about, I think that sets it up for a much bigger move to new all-time highs. And the upside potential with a lot of these tokens, notice how it says the market cap is almost $2 billion. Market cap is literally an obsolete metric, and I've realized that with many of the tokens over on PulseChain, because the supplies of these are so small, and most of the supply is held by these wallets that never sell, that it's basically just destined to have these insanely high market caps, but it doesn't really change anything. The ROIs are still really high. This thing could have like $1 trillion in market cap, and it would never matter, because look, the liquidity is only 819K. It only has 819K, so realistically, it's not like you could actually pull $2 billion out of the market. That value isn't real, and that's why I say market cap is kind of a, you know, flawed metric. It doesn't really mean anything. So when we're looking at this token having all of the supply hoarded up that's not going to sell, the upside potential of these is really high, because as the new liquidity grows, as the ecosystem grows, all of the tokens that are bonded together, as they grow, they end up driving each other up together. So I do think that with this one breaking out, we're about to see a much bigger move to the upside very soon. Next up is going to be Teddy Bear. Teddy Bear is my favorite meme coin on the PulseChain ecosystem. This thing is looking really solid, just consolidating right above those prior all-time highs. You know, we're kind of just consolidating in this pretty big range. You know, not really making any sort of sizable move one way or another. But I do think that we're at a close moment of time before we get outside of this. This to me just looks like an ascending triangle. We're kind of just coiling inside of this move before, you know, maybe we'd do something like this. But regardless, I think we're going to make a breakout, and this thing is about to send it into a very, very big new all-time high. This has a lot of good liquidity, only 30 mil market cap. I think the upside potential is still going to be massive with this. And this is the biggest meme coin on the PulseChain ecosystem, so I just think it's going to have that, you know, signature staple as being the earliest, being the biggest front runner, having that first mover's advantage. So I definitely think you should watch out for this one, because it's most definitely going to be taking off in a big way. Now, from where we bought at the beginning, you know, if you watch my videos, we bought all the way back down here at this low. So from where we're at right now, we're up about 7, almost 8x. So I think that this thing is easily, from where we bought it, going to do at least, I mean, from where we bought it all the way back down where I made my first videos, for anybody that followed along with that, I think this thing is easily going to do 100x. 100x is only up to here, and I think that's for sure going to happen over the course of the entire cycle. This entire ecosystem is going to blow up, and I think the teddy bear is 100% going to explode from at least where we're at right now. You know, the ROI won't be the same, but you're still looking at a 10x from where that's going to be, so just be aware of that big picture. There's a lot more upside potential still to come. Final one I want to talk to you guys about today is going to be UFO. Now, UFO just recently launched, and this is going to be a reflection token. I like this. It looks like your standard just get added to exchanges, make this little listing consolidation before it finally just starts running. I do think that this thing's going to run in a big way. Now with the reflection tokens, they have a buy and a sell tax. So if you're going to buy it, you have to set your slippage to those prices, 6 or 7%, just so that you can actually get the transaction to go through. It's got good liquidity though, so you shouldn't have too many issues at 6%. I would just be aware of that if you're looking to buy this token. Now with UFO, the reason I think it's going to do well is because it's paired to PTGC, which is the Gray's currency. And this thing is done really, really well. You know, we're seeing it inside of this pullback against the dollar, but regardless, the whole PulseChain ecosystem is kind of in the sell-off. We are just sitting right back on that main support though. So with us reclaiming this, I think that we're probably going to reverse from here and then start that next move into new all-time highs. And so if you're looking at the native token of the Gray's currency going into another new all-time high, I think that it's likely that UFO, which is right over here, is going to end up doing the exact same thing. So the opportunity is a lot higher at only 3 mil market cap, because holding this is going to earn you reflection rewards that are paid out in the actual tokens in this ecosystem. So there is a lot of upside potential with these reflection tokens being in early, because when they start moving in a big way, all of that volume, all of those buy and sell taxes that are happening goes back to the token holders themselves. So be aware of that. This is my breakdown of the PulseChain ecosystem. Guys, if you found value, do me a favor, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. For anybody that wants to see how I'm investing my portfolio long term, if you guys want to see anything I'm doing, buying, selling, trading over this entire cycle, when I'm going to be taking profits, links are in the description to actually go ahead and sign up on my website. Thank you guys so much for the support. And with that being said, I will catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.